Dialectical behavior therapy was created in the 1980s by Marsha Linehan in Seattle, Washington.
Today, DBT is taught all over the world.
We're two therapists who believe everyone can benefit from DBT skills.
I'm Kate.
I'm Michelle.
And this is DBT and Me.
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
We are here to do something that we have never done before for this
different.
monthly episode, but it's also something that we've done now about 70 times with Q&As in a weird way. So yes, today is indeed a monthly episode, but for those of you who listen to our Q&A episodes that we put out, we try to do at least one a month, but sometimes life happens and we can't do them for a long time. This is going to be a Q&A episode, but we're calling it a mega Q&A. And all that means, dun, 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 yep, we are just doubling the amount of content for this Q&A to make it a longer episode for all of you. So most Q&A episodes, well, I shouldn't say most, really all.
Yeah.
Every Q&A, we do 4 questions, if you've been paying attention. Today we're going to be doing 8. So we're just doubling what we normally do in responding to the things that you all bring to us with challenges you're having or things you're wondering about when it comes to DBT.
Maybe we can catch up faster.
That is a big part of why we're doing this, is because we are so behind on Q&As. Sometimes I question if we will ever get caught up, but doing a mega Q&A like this may help. And we've decided that we are going to do a regular rotation of these longer Q&A episodes like this. So this is mega Q&A number 1, but in a few months from now, we'll be doing another one of these, and we're going to just do them pretty much once a quarter every time. So you'll be getting more of these. So hopefully you like Q&As and you'll like the monthly episodes. I have gotten good
feedback about them from the people who have ended up in my DBT groups from the podcast, that they're really helpful because they like hearing the real life examples. So I have faith. Yes, I really like Q&As as well. I like doing them. That's true.
Yeah, we like doing them. They're fun for us. So because it's a monthly episode, some of the things that are going to be the same, some of the things that are going to be a little different from normal monthly episodes. I am about to do some promotional thing. I'll tell you all what it is in a moment. Here's the suspense. No, it's not really that exciting, but we will have something that we're promoting like we do in our monthly episodes. If we ever get patrons for these, when we happen to be recording a mega Q&A, we'll mention the patrons. We'll call you guys out because we love our patrons. And the thing that will be different, though, is that we decided we're not going to do a closing moment today. We don't normally do closing moments as part of Q&A episodes ever. So it just felt weird to try to do one today. So when we
guess right in if that's seriously problematic so we can fix it before the next ones, but that's the plan moving forward.
Yeah, when we do these mega Q&A episodes every couple months, you aren't going to get a closing moment from Kate. So sorry if that's a bummer, because we know a lot of you love closing moments too. But it just feels a little odd. And we have a feeling these mega Q&As might be pretty long episodes. We were both taking bets beforehand, and we both have predicted that this episode could air on the side of an hour and 45 minutes. That was our prediction.
Tuned.
We're like, how long could this be? We've never done one of this length with a Q&A before. It's our first time with answering 8 questions instead of 4. So I think that's the main stuff that I have to say before I get into promotion. But actually, to interrupt me talking, Kate, I know you have a disclaimer today. Why don't you show your disclaimer before I do promotion stuff?
That's fair. So my disclaimer is there will, despite the editing magic of our wonderful support team, there will probably be traffic noises and some other stuff today because I'll be damned if I'm closing the window behind me. A, it's it's very hot in here. And B, I am airing out a room that smells very poorly that is nearby, and it is wafting into this room. And despite the 3 lit candles that smell good and are around me, I am not cutting my access to fresh air. So, my apologies. I wish those people didn't drive like that either. But it may happen that some traffic noise is happening when I'm talking, and thusly is impossible to edit out. So, just a brief apology for that. And the, almost inevitable goose and or gin. Now that I have more than one animal interruptus.
They may be around.
They might be.
Yeah. Perfect. So the thing we're promoting this month is really going back to, it's been a long time since we were doing coffee hours. I think before I was on maternity leave.
Yeah.
I think that was when we ended coffee hours. Yeah. For those of you who may be new listeners or just need a refresher when you're like, what are you guys talking about with coffee hours? The quick explanation is that for quite a few months, I forgot to double check
how many
before recording today. Yes, exactly. How many we have. I want to say, at least 7. That's my guess. But we were doing these monthly live trainings once per month for quite a while, and we called them coffee hours, and they're for mental health professionals. Whether you are a graduate student and you are about to become a therapist, whether you are already a therapist, but now you're wanting to bring on DBT groups to your practice and you just have no clue where to start, wherever you find yourself with being in the profession, but wanting to incorporate more DBT into how you're working with your clients, those are the folks that we designed Coffee Hour for. So every month we did, an hour-long conversation. Normally some of it was set aside for Q&A at the end. And we had a different topic about facilitating DBT groups each time. These workshops were not meant to actually serve to talk about skills themselves. So we weren't, training people, you could say, on this is what this DBT skill is, because the other podcast episodes kind of do that for you. If you want to know what please is, go listen to our please episode, for example. But it was really to talk through some of the things that come up with groups, like, when you're wanting to come up with your guidelines for your group, what could good guidelines be? When you're considering how you want structure each of the 4 modules, what topics do you want to talk about each night? So, yeah, exactly. How to market your groups. That was a topic we did. The good news is, even though we haven't done coffee hours in a long time because our life just got really busy, we still have dreams of eventually organizing them into a one-stop shop for a course that people can purchase. But we do have them all recorded and available to replay. So we thought this month we would mention that again in case any of you are mental health professionals listening and you're like, hey, I've really toyed around with the idea of bringing a DBT group into my work, but I don't know the first thing about how I would practically do that.
We are here for you.
You want our coffee hour trainings. Yep, exactly. You want those. And we price them maybe a little too on the affordable side. We really wanted to make them easy for people to get. So I was looking back to how much were we charging people for these? So the cost is very affordable. It's $17 per, it's an hour, right, per topic of training. And then if you are a patron, you get $5 off of that. So it's only $12 for you if you're a patron to buy our coffee hours. So if you're at all curious about this, what you can do is shoot us an email at dbtmepodcast@gmail.com and just say in the subject line, coffee hours. And then just say, hey, you mentioned this on your recent, episode. I'm curious about it. We will send you a list of what the topics are. And you just get to pick and choose which ones sound of interest for you. Yep, a la carte. You can purchase one. You can purchase all of them, however many or few you want that pertains to the information you think would be helpful for you. And then we send you an invoice to send us your payment. And then once we receive your payment, we just send you the Zoom recording. And you can watch it at your leisure. So If you're at all curious about coffee hours, just send us an email and we will take it from there with getting them to you. So that's our promotion for this month. And now we're going to dive into our mega Q&A. 8 listener questions. Here we go. Some of these are really long, too.
That's true. All right. The first one reads, you guys have brought up an analogy a few times of everyone always carrying our troubles in a backpack and that sometimes we just need help letting go of some of these boulders and lightening our load. Lately, I feel like I can't even close my pack and I'm really nervous to attempt to pick it up. I don't have any person I can speak with about anything. Definitely not confidently, truthfully, safely, openly, or especially about any of the things going on in my life right now. And everything's piling up. I haven't felt like doing anything I enjoy lately. I did try journaling, which did help for a short time, but I'm also terrified my daughter or even my son may find them and read them. I've started re-listening to your podcast in hopes I'll hear or find something else I could use that I missed or overlooked the first time through. I love listening to how kind you interact with one another, even though you're both so different in such beautiful ways. Lately, I've just felt so angry and trapped, so it's been nice, and closing moments have been a blessing all over again. I feel so scrambled and lost and confused, so I guess my question is, which skills are most beneficial for handling grief and anger episodes?
And I'm realizing too, I mean, Kate, you're going to dive into skills like you are so good at doing, because so often in my responses, I don't mention anything that's that DBT related sometimes. And I'm not really answering this listener's question at the end. So I'm going to leave that to you, Kate.
Fair.
Because there were just so many other things that stood out to me with what they were talking about. So I'm guessing, though I don't know anything about this listener, my guess is that if their quote-unquote backpack is feeling so full of troubles, my sense is that there is some trauma going on there that's getting reactivated for them, that's making it really hard to feel like they can just manage in day-to-day life in the ways that they need to do. So when we talk about like rocks in the backpack, which I actually think, I mean, maybe it came up on DBT. I was trying to think back of like, when on this podcast did we talk about it? But I know we mentioned it when we had a guest on our other podcast, The Couch and the Chair. I think it was a metaphor that actually that guest brought up in our episode about childhood trauma. Okay. That's when I most vividly remember this analogy being mentioned. But if I keep going with the analogy of like a backpack and there's rocks in the backpack that we're carrying around, and that these things represent our trauma, our stress, all of that. To me, not all of those rocks are created equal. Right? Like some are bigger than others for what we are carrying around when it comes to stress and difficulties. And therefore, I recommend that a good place to start is trying to take some of, we could say smaller rocks out of your backpack first. Yeah, I understand. It would be a whole lot lighter if you could get a huge rock out of your backpack, the big trauma, the big thing that's really taking up space for you. Yeah, that would be amazing. But starting small is a lot more obtainable. So if there is a more minor stressor, if you were to think about all the things you're carrying around and almost like rank them, even just in your head, like what's my most stressful thing to my least stressful thing that I'm carrying around? Start with the least stressful. And try to take some of those, I mean, not like, I'm saying take those things out of the backpack, but seeing like there may be something that's easier to do about those stressors than about the big ones. It may be easier to have it be that like those are things you would like journal about or talk about with someone, even though I know you mentioned you don't have anyone, and Kate's going to be addressing that as well in her response. But I was also thinking, like, when you are in any kind of supportive spaces, because what really stood out to me with this listener's I don't remember if it was an email or a post in the Facebook group, but they talk about grief and anger. I just saw loneliness. Like so much loneliness in what they shared. So that really stood out to me. Is when we are feeling lonely, when can we get curious about if we are in any kind of supportive space at all? And to try to spend more time there if we can. Now, supportive space is different than having supportive relationships. I understand you don't have those. But a supportive space could be like your local coffee shop. Like a supportive space could be a park near your house that you like walking in. A supportive space could be if you go to the grocery store and there's like one cashier that you kind of like more than the other cashiers, go through that cashier's line. Like a supportive space can be anywhere where you at all feel like your nervous system is a little bit calmer and like you're around people that even if you don't know their names and they don't know yours, people who are kind and friendly. Try to be in those spaces as much as you can to combat that loneliness that you're experiencing and that lack of support. And then the last thing I'll address, because it stood out to me, was about the journals. So with that, it's a totally normal fear that a lot of people have of like, I really don't feel like I can journal safely because what if people find them? I've never journaled this way, but I know there are a ton of apps.
Yes.
Tons and tons and tons. And also like you could consider too, if you really do want to like write, put pen to paper and what to do with that. Yes, you could burn it, rip it up, destroy it in some way after you journal. That's an option. Or you can see if you could find some kind of lockbox where you can store the journal as well and just keep that key, in a place that's safe, that other people in your life won't necessarily know that key is there or how to access it. That could be an option as well. I guess okay, hold on a second though. I'm looking back at my notes. I did mention one skill. I did mention one skill. I did come back around, I guess, when I wrote this. I wrote this a long time ago, the notes to this listener. I reread what I was going to say last night, but I forgot this until just now. That with the anger, okay, because they say what would be beneficial for handling grief and anger episodes. One thing that could be helpful with the anger piece of things, looking for patterns with what activates anger for you. And those may be times to use, I was thinking kind of like, it doesn't have to be formal cope ahead. But again, when you can think about, okay, when I'm in this situation, I know I tend to feel anger. Imagine, visualize how you want to act in that situation while you feel angry. It's not about making the anger go away. The anger is not bad or wrong. But when you feel angry, how do you want to show up? How do you want to behave? And like really when you are doing a visualization like Cope Ahead, feel the anger in your body, but see yourself doing something different with it. That can be really helpful, I think. So I touched on a number of different things there, but I'll turn it over to you, Kate.
All right. So it's funny, Michelle, because some of the same things stood out to both of us, I think. I definitely hooked on to that idea of not having any person to talk to. So I don't know where this person lives, so I don't want to be presumptuous, but I do know that at least in America, there's a national suicide prevention hotline, but a lot of different counties and other areas will have local crisis lines. We've got a pretty excellent one here in King County in Washington State. I volunteered at one for a while, and I will say that despite the fact that, yes, you are technically making a phone call to a stranger, it's a much more supportive and connective experience than you might suspect. Right? Like that's what these folks are here for. Is for someone to talk to, right? Someone who needs some support, someone who needs some human connection, and who needs to take some rocks out of the backpack, since we're continuing with that. I also wondered if this listener might be able to look for local or community-based support groups. I don't know what is going on in the let alone the things that are going on in my life right now. But depending on if that's, specific diagnoses or mental health issues, if that's life transitions, if that's health issues, a lot of different kinds of issues. There are local support groups around those ideas, many of which are even free. So something to look for, again, to generate community and connection, because I was also noticing that a lot, Michelle, the lack of that, and how heavy it is to carry a lack of connection, as weird as that is. Instead of feeling like an absence, I think it feels like something really hefty to carry around. So connecting over shared strife is sometimes you can go too far with it, but generally speaking, it is a way to start a connection with a person that gives you an inroad, right? You both know that you have this struggle, so give me a way to make connections as well. So as for skills, because yes, I like being the skills fairy, and again, this is based on the listener's description of what was going on with them. If any of them don't land, don't worry, listener, just throw them out. That's okay. We definitely want you to pick and choose skills that feel like they're going to land and work well for you. The first one I think of is radical acceptance. I think anger and grief can often be, I don't know how I want to phrase it, totally normal and natural, internal, slightly obstinate responses to things, right? Like we're grieving because we want things to be different than they are, or we're angry because we want things to be different than they are. I think both of those are pretty consistent responses to that. And so maybe flexing into some radical acceptance would help diminish some of that anger and or grief. It doesn't right? It doesn't make it vanish, but we're looking at some diminishment, right? Some attenuation of that issue. It sounds like improve and or accepts could both potentially be useful. If you have a preference for one over the other, fantastic. They serve similar functions, slightly different. I tend to lean towards accepts. Michelle tends to lean towards improve, but they are both useful when in times of high distress. So whether you're trying to sort of shift your perspective on the moment or just distract yourself from the moment, both of them have good options. And potentially, sometimes you might want to consider opposite action. This might look like choosing to, reach out to a crisis line when you feel anxious or like nobody's going to care. This might look like recognizing that acting on the anger that you're feeling in the moment isn't going to be effective, even if it's reasonable anger. And so choosing to act in opposition to that anger in order to help shift yourself out of that space, right? There's a lot of different things we can use opposite action around that I think the listener might benefit from. And then my other last totally non-DBT thing is I wanted to inquire of this listener if they have tried asking their anger or their grief what they want from them. I have no idea what episode. I know I've done the emotion on the bench.
Oh, yeah.
Closing moment somewhere out there is that closing moment. But yeah, this idea of picking a way to imagine or embody your emotion, maybe imagine them as a child or as an entity that's shaped by their form. But sitting down and trying to have a conversation with them and being like, hey, if you're lingering, if you're hanging out this long, like, what is something that you're trying to get me to do? Even if it's something that's preposterous and you're like, thank you for being honest with me, anger. I am not about to go do that terribly illegal thing, but I hear you and your desire, right? It's not about necessarily giving into it, but even just that deep checking in and trying to see what the emotion's asking for can often help start to shift how that emotion is showing up.
Yeah, nice. Next one says, I'm in a unique living situation as a single stay-at-home mom. I have one kiddo in school and a toddler at home with me, and neither go to family or friends on a regular basis. So we don't get breaks from each other often. I'm coping with that the best I can. The problems I'm facing are boredom, loneliness, and irritability stemming from both. I read a lot, but even that isn't keeping my attention like it used to. When I'm not running errands or cleaning or dealing with kiddos, I'm bored so much I want to cry. I have 2 friends I chat with online and see in person a few times a year. And I'm chatting with a potential romantic partner online, but in person, I don't really see many people on a regular basis. I'm an introvert, but not to this degree. And because of these problems and possibly a side effect of one of my medications, I'm irritable with my kids a lot. I hate it, and I try to use as many skills as I can think of to help it, but it seems like nothing is working, and I still snap on them consistently. What skills can I use to deal with the loneliness and boredom and irritability on a daily basis? Thank you so much for any input.
Yeah, it's Michelle. It's funny you got to this as per usual, the notes before me, and you're definitely going to say a lot of good things. But it was funny that even before I read your notes, I was just reading this entry, and I was like, "Oh my god, this feels like it's meant for Michelle." And like the stuff that you focus on as a therapist. So I'm just excited to hear a lot of the stuff that you're going to share too. Some of the things that I thought might be helpful for this person is focusing actually on the long-term part of the A from ABC. So that's all right. DBT says accumulating positive emotions, but I don't think that's appropriate. So I say accumulating positive experiences in the long term. So that's about like bringing more values-based activities to your life. This can be as simple as like one time a month you go and volunteer at a local fill in your blank year with thing you actually give a shit about. Right? It doesn't have to be a huge commitment of time, but just knowing that you're taking some deliberate amount of your time and bringing your life more in alignment with your values can do a lot to improve satisfaction and decrease the sense of boredom or loneliness or irritability. Oftentimes, I notice for myself and for clients that when those things are showing up a lot, there's this baseline dissatisfaction with our day-to-day existence. And one way to improve that is the long-term A from ABC. The short-term one too. I probably don't flog that skill nearly as much out loud as I utilize it. It's probably my most utilized skill is the short-term A from ABC. But for that sort of consistent anger and irritability, I think the long-term one can be really helpful. I also wanted to suggest to this person that maybe they could find some community with other parents in their area. Michelle, you have opened my eyes to the sheer amount of different parent things, and sound very educated in this moment, that exist out there between Facebook groups and local swaps of things. And I don't know. It's just amazing. You have found like apps where moms get together, like dates, but not romantically.
Peanut.
I don't know.
That's what it's called. Yeah. You literally, it's for moms and you swipe.
Yeah. Right.
You swipe right or left of whether it's a mom that you're like, oh, she sounds cool. I'd want to be friends with her.
Right? So, yeah, it's so wild to me. Right. So anyway, there's a lot of ways to try and connect with other parents. Even if it just looks like, I don't know, Michelle, when I was helping with Leah last year. Nope. I mean, yes.
That was a few months ago.
Oh, motherfucker.
Wait, which time are you talking about? Are you talking about my maternity
right after
leave?
Birth.
Or
yeah,
are you talking
maternity
about
leave. Because
oh, yes. Then, that was last year. I thought you were asking about
the thing at the library.
Yeah, you went to story time with her.
Yeah, and so even that was to me like, oh, shit, right? Like, if this were something I went to every week, I could totally see myself, making friends with other parents that were bringing their kids to this thing. So, like, there's, whether it's, going to kid-oriented things that other parents will be in that you share the interest in, or apps, or social media, or like there's a lot of different things, and it sounds like you could really benefit from more in-person interaction with people who understand what it's like to be consistently kiddoed, while also dealing with the rest of life. Sorry, looking at my notes. Oh, I was also, that's funny, Michelle. Now I'm the one that I have one DBT skill in here. Haha. I was like, surely I say something else. I really don't. I was wondering what it might look like for this listener to grow their kids' community ties, and that it also might be a way for them and, A, to get breaks, and or B, to find community. So I don't know, if your school age kid has a passion for dance, enrolling them in tap, or if they really want to do martial arts or something, right? It doesn't matter what it is. But something where they get more community ties, they maybe build more friendships, and maybe on occasion they now have friends, or there are other parents that you can be like, hi, would you like to drive them to karate tonight so I can have an hour to breathe? That'd be amazing, right? So sometimes growing our kids' community can help grow ours as well. That's really what I just said. My second line, I just got ahead of myself. Oh, and I was wondering how supportive this person's family was. I know they said that their kids don't spend much time with friends or family on a regular basis. But I know, at least for me, with my not at all the same, but the closest approximation I have is Goose, my dog. And I didn't realize how supportive the people in my life were until I was open about how fucking stressed he was making me. I love that dog to the bottom of my soul. I was also losing my goddamned mind. So both can be true. Dialectics. So I don't know if you've felt open and able to share with your family that this is a struggle that you have, but it might be that if you were able to be safely open with them about that you might have people who be like, oh fuck, we didn't realize. Yeah, hand us the kids every Thursday night. That sounds great. Whatever. You might have more support waiting in the wings than you know, if you feel able to talk openly about your needs and what they might be able to do to help ameliorate them. All right, you turn. Your turn.
I love a lot of the things you were talking about when it comes to finding support. So for those of you who don't know, again, if you've been listening to the podcast for any length of time, you already probably know this about me. I have a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old. So I am in the trenches of parenting with young children. That having been said, I am not a single parent. I'm also not a stay-at-home parent. If I were that combination of things, oh boy. I look forward to my work days because it just uses a totally different part of my brain. I love being a mom. I love my kids. And I cannot fathom feeling like I am now only a mom and nothing else. That I am not also, for me, like a therapist, a business owner, like this is why, even though life has been really hard lately, I realized too, kid, I was like, oh yeah, we did acknowledge at the beginning that this is our first time recording together again in a couple months.
Oh,
like it's just been hard. I mean, a lot of it's been stuff coming up in my life and, just kids, it's so much. It's so much. So just shout out to you, listener, for doing it solo when we are not meant to do this child rearing thing solo.
No.
It's too much for any one person. So I'm going to get to the irritability stuff you mentioned a little more at the end of my response. But even though I love Kate's ideas and I highly suggest them, of finding opportunities where you can be with other parents, with your toddler, and like finding community with other parents is really, really key. And it does sound like that's missing for you, given what you talked about in what you wrote. Here's the other component that's also really important to not losing your mind. You do need community with other parents. That's one piece. The second piece is you need to find activities for yourself that you enjoy that you can bring your kids to. There need to be times where you say, this is for me, not for them. And this is not for me as like a mother. Well, I don't know. Did this person stay-at-home mom. Okay, wanted to make sure I got that right for a second. This is not just for me as a mother. This is for me as a human. Like there are times where like my kids want Miss Rachel on in the background all day long. That's what my son wants to listen to. Sometimes he gets to watch. Sometimes I'm like, no, you just get to hear Miss Rachel through my phone on YouTube. And then other times I say, we're not going to listen to Miss Rachel right now. We're going to listen to some music mommy likes. And he doesn't like that. But I need a break from Miss Rachel. For the love of God. I mean, she's amazing. But I need a break sometimes. So you have to find things that you want to do. Like if you're going to go for a walk with your kids, go for a place you like going for a walk. Find things that you can do. Like if you really like to exercise, if that's your jam, find a gym that has childcare so that you can go work out because that's something you like to do. Yes, going to story time is important, but it may not be like your idea of fun. It may not fill you up in that way. So you also need to have a couple things where you're like, nope, we're going to go to a place mommy likes now, and you're just going to tag along. Yep, we're going to go to a coffee shop, and you're going to sit in your stroller while I sit here and drink a drink that I like. Kind of a thing. That may be helpful. The other thing that's important, I call it sneaky self-care. So I learned very quickly when I became a mom that everything I had ever thought about or recommended for self-care to anybody else went out the window. It's just gone. Like, no, I cannot even fathom the idea of blocking some days even 30 minutes to do anything for myself. I just can't fathom it. I cannot. And people will say, and it's not wrong, they're like, well, when the kids are napping after they go to bed. Sure. There's also endless dishes, laundry, etc. to do that my stress will just mount if I don't tackle those things. And by the time I've tackled all those things and taken a shower, the day's done. So you need to do sneaky self-care. And that means it's mindfulness. I mean, that's really what I'm recommending. It's combining mindfulness, and it's combining self-soothing with the 5 senses, so that anytime, anywhere, doing anything, you are finding ways to sneak in something that feels like self-care to you.
I'm good at this, not as a mother, but I'm good at this. This is a thing.
Yeah, you are really good at this. Yeah, you super are. Like, so that's a thing where it's like, okay, I don't know. It's cold outside and I'm home. I'm going to wear my favorite pair of warm, fuzzy socks. This is that, okay, after the kids go to bed at night and I am folding the piles of laundry, I'm going to light a candle that smells good to me while I fold the laundry. This is, hey, maybe there are times again when you're at home and you just need to stick in an earbud and listen to music while you're doing diaper changes or playing with your toddler. Like, just finding some things. This may be like you have a bowl of chocolate out, and as you're walking by it, just eat a chocolate. This is not going to be blocking time for self-care. Don't try to do that.
It's a little A from accumulating positive experiences.
It is. Yes, thank you. That's a good way. Yes, it is that. Yep, it's just the quick on the fly. I don't have to pause the things that I'm doing to take care of myself while I'm doing them. So that's why I call it sneaky self-care. About the irritability. So I hear your shame when you talk about that. I hear that you feel really bad that you are snapping at your kids. And kudos to you for bringing this question of saying, I want to work on it. I want it to get better. I don't want to be responding to them this way. Yes, yes, yes. The thing I'm actually going to recommend, I mean, yes, I could sit here and I could be like, go do tip, or, I could recommend those things. But in the context of parenting and in the context of being irritable with your kids, the best thing that you can do for yourself is to not try to hide it and put on a happy face when you are irritable. Talk about what you're feeling. Use language with your kids like, mommy is feeling really angry right now because the toys are everywhere in the living room and we need to pick them up. And just use words, right? It feels overwhelming for me. It feels stressful for me when I see that the toys are everywhere. You can name like when your child is yelling at you, screaming at you, to say, I can tell that you feel angry right now. Sometimes I also feel angry, and I can tell when I feel angry, my tone of voice changes too. Sometimes I know I yell and that kind of a thing. Like, just name it. Like, yeah, we all feel angry. We do. Repair if you feel like you really messed up, right? Like, go to your kids after and be like, ooh, I know I really got angry with you earlier. And even though it's okay for me to be angry, it's not okay that I yelled that at you. I'm really sorry I yelled that at you, right? Fine breathing things. We've talked about it here and there on the podcast, even though it was ages ago, but you can YouTube this, you can Google this. There are a million ways to teach your kids how to take deep breaths that are age appropriate for them that you can do as well. So like one off the top of my head is like pretending to blow out birthday candles. So the next time that you find yourself feeling irritable, name that for your kids. I can tell that I'm starting to feel mad. I'm going to pretend to blow out birthday candles and do it in front of them. Do the same things that you teach them to manage your irritability. But don't try to act like you don't ever feel angry, because of course you do. We all do. And it's okay.
I love that. I'm going to cheat because I know it's my turn to read, but I want to just piggyback and say, yeah, as a child of someone who had approximately 0 emotion regulation skills, I just want to triple down on everything Michelle said, especially the idea of making repair. I cannot tell you how many years it probably would shave off my therapy journey if my mother had ever come to me after anything and been like, yo, I'm so sorry, right? Like, I got overwhelmed and I treated you like shit, and I'm so sorry. I see that now, right? Like, the recognition and the apology would have done so much to undo the damage done in the first place. I would be, on the whole, a person who had suffered a lot less damage. So, yeah, even if you fuck up royally, don't think that it's beyond repair or that your repair doesn't matter at all. It definitely does, because there were times my mom fucked up royally is a nice way to put it. And still, I know that if she had been able to call herself out on that, that would have been amazingly impactful for me. And everything Michelle said, my mom didn't have them, but if she'd had any skills, her modeling those in front of me would have been incredibly helpful. Because I would have had some fucking idea before. Wouldn't have had to try and pick those skills up in the wild. So no, it's awesome to show kids, because kids who think their parents don't have feelings don't learn how to handle their own feelings. So thank you, Michelle, for all of that. Mm-hmm. All right. What is the actual thing that I'm supposed to be reading? Okay. This one says, I am a daily marijuana user, and my therapist and I have been discussing the need for a tolerance break at minimum, at minimum, to better discern how much of my memory issues are substance related and how much is trauma / depression / etc. related. So she tasked me with thinking of some coping skills and things I can do to help while I'm taking the break. I'm trying to think of more things to do with my hands, but the catch is I have carpal tunnel, so there's a lot I can't do anymore. Anyway, any tips, tricks, skills, or recommendations are greatly appreciated.
Mm-hmm. It's the same way that I had more lived experience with the last one, being a mom of young kids.
This one's mine.
Kate has more lived experience with this one, yes. So we'll just put that out there. And Kate's going to also do a really good job of actually talking about like some more smaller nitty-gritty coping skills than I am. But I was just kind of thinking of this more big picture of like any time that we're trying to break a habit, what can be helpful. Anytime that we are doing something daily, whatever it is, our brain is pretty used to that. And when we take it away, our brain's going to kind of freak out and be like, now what? So how do you manage that? Some things that can be helpful there. So if we really zoom out, in general, listener, you may need to look at the routines that you currently have in your life and mixing those up. If you have a time of day when you typically use, you're going to need to kind of be planning in advance. This is where, again, Kate's going to break it down for like what you can do during that time. But you're going to need to maybe restructure what you're doing in your day. Like that's a big thing, especially. I know that in this case, again, we're not looking at somebody who's like struggling with addiction necessarily. But for people who are struggling with addiction with a substance of any kind, they have to completely redo their daily routine from the ground up because whatever substance they were using is so integrated into it. So just think about that of like, when are the times a day where I normally use and what needs to be different during those times a day. And along those lines, what can also be really helpful is if you have somebody in your life that you can be accountable to. So what that looks like is you want somebody who's going to celebrate you for every small win you have, and also who's not going to be too judgy of you if you slip up. Those things are important. But even more than that, like somebody who is also going to be able to challenge you in the sense of, really like maybe checking with you on, okay, like what's helping you do this? Like, what are you changing, and sharing that with them. So every day that you have when you are on this break and you don't use like you typically do, if you have a person like that in your life, and I sincerely hope you have somebody who could check those boxes, like let them know. It could be a therapist, right? You show up each week at therapy. Hey, I did it, right? And also, like, again, if urges are coming up for you or it's just feeling really hard, somebody who you could reach out to about that, and they're not just gonna, like, I don't know, just be like, well, you know that you shouldn't, kind of a thing. Like somebody who's, again, going to validate those struggles of potential slipping up or actually slipping up. But also know like what you're implementing in your life to try to keep you on track during this break time as well. So I just really wanted to recommend that piece of like, make sure you have support before you go on this break. Think beforehand about how you want to change your routines and have support as prep work. Those things will help you be successful. As Kate dives in more to the nitty-gritty of what you can actually do while you're on the break.
No, I love that. I love the idea of having that supportive, person to celebrate with you and to like hold your hand and support you if and or when you slip up. That makes perfect sense. I also don't know, I realized just how consistent in the daily user means. So I'm going to add a little bit that I didn't put in my notes, so hopefully I don't get too lost, because I too, listener, am a daily user of that, and I needed to of marijuana, and needed to stop for a recent surgery, and so this has been in my world very recently. So if you're someone who like smokes a bowl in the evenings, then maybe this won't be as much of a thing. But if you're someone like me who tends to smoke more I vape, but use more throughout the day, minus to control nausea, that when you have that break, there's a certain sort of emotional numbing that consistent pot use creates. And so just be prepared, whatever this looks like. This would be something I would highly recommend talking through with your therapist, what your plan is. If, for instance, suddenly anger shows up louder and more clearly than it has in a while, or if sadness or grief shows up more clearly and loudly than it usually does, having that that plan in place for how to cope with the emotions that you might struggle with if they show up suddenly with a lot more clarity and volume, potentially, because that can happen when you take a break from a substance like pot that has that neurochemical impact on you. So that's the little aside. But you asked for skills. My first line in my notes is accepts, baby. Because the name of the game, I think at the start, is largely distraction, right? My body, you talked about things you do with your hands, listener, so I suspect this is similar for you. My body is used to doing that. Like, I needed to make sure my pot was literally not within my reach, or I knew I would end up using it without noticing that I even did it, because I at least don't have to do much in the way of any ritual, right? Because I'm not burning anything. I can just reach over, grab my vape, and use it, and then be like, fuck. Right, which is a little bit harder if you're actually smoking a joint or doing a bong rip or something like that. But make sure you have an ability to distract yourself. When it comes to distractions and planning what you might utilize, you might focus on finding other ways to stimulate your dopamine response, essentially. Instead of your distraction being something more, I don't know, sedate, you might do something that more actively engages you, whatever that means for you. So if you're having the urge to grab pot, grab instead, I don't know, drink a cup of tea that you really enjoy, watch a funny or horror, whatever action movie, put on lotion that you like the feeling and the smell of, masturbate, eat candy, right? Something like that. Play video games, right? Whatever it is that stimulates your neurochemistry in a nice, similar, distracting way. You may also want to practice mindfulness to notice when and why you're wanting to use. That can be good data, like during a break. Is the like, oh, when is it hardest to resist? When do I reach for it the most? What is coming up for me? Maybe you already have a clear understanding and idea of why and when you use, but most people I know, myself included, whenever I take breaks, I learn a little bit more about like, oh, I thought I was only doing it in this way or for this reason, but now that I don't have it in my world, I notice a little bit more clearly some of the other roles that it's playing. And so you might see if you can bring some mindfulness to that. That might look like journaling or conversations with that accountability partner that Michelle was talking about in her suggestions. But whatever it is, as you're noticing sorry, my brain just left me in the middle of my own sentence. It's funny to talk about mindfulness and have your sentence leave in the middle. I do think that's almost irony. But yeah, if you bring mindfulness to bear to notice the when and the why that you're wanting to use, the other thing that I would say is to make sure that you're self-compassionate during that process, right? Whatever the answer is, if it's because I don't want to feel anymore, right? Like, don't be judgy of yourself. Like, we don't want your accountability partner to be someone who's going to be judgy of you if you slip up or if you have urges or anything else. We certainly don't want you being judgy of yourself if you have slip-ups or urges or things like that. So seeing if you can be self-compassionate and curious instead of judgmental and sort of shut down on yourself can really help build that clarity.
Great. All right, this next one's a pretty long one here. It says, hi, I'm fairly new to the group. I don't normally interact in Facebook groups or dare to even reach out, but I'm struggling with the concept of DBT altogether. About a month ago, my therapist suggested I join a DBT group, but since I'm cautious and slow to most things, it has taken me a while to even wrap my head around the idea. It just feels like brainwashing myself. I purchased a book to try to work through it on my own. But due to dyslexia, on top of anxiety, depression, and burnout, it takes me days to digest one page, and then I struggle to put it in practice because I can't come up with examples for the practice because it doesn't feel like it applies to any of my situations. But last night, I had a moment where I knew what I was doing was irrational, and I could see that me continuing was causing my spouse to shut down. But I couldn't stop myself. It ended up okay. We sat down and had a 4-hour-long conversation about our needs and how the other person can help. It was productive, and we never yelled or made jabs at each other. But I feel terrible that I was so triggered that I let such a stupid thing cause me so much stress. And to top it off, he pointed out a lot of ways in which I am lacking or dismissive in our relationship, which I appreciate because I don't know what I don't know. He was kind of respectful about it, but it still made me feel kind of like shit. He constantly says that he can never see himself leaving me, but then says how he never thought he was going to get where he is in life and doesn't know how to make or set or achieve his goals because he never thought to have any, because he never thought he would get anywhere in life. It scares me that he's going to one day figure it out and find out that he never wanted to be with me in the first place and just was with me because that's what you do. I guess all of this is to ask if there are any skills to use to, 1, stop living in this 4-hour conversation where I'm picking apart every little thing we each said and feeling defeated by all the wrong things I said and all the truthful things he said. And 2, for keeping myself from snapping over something as stupid as keeping the half-empty carton of soda in the fridge after I spent all day deep cleaning it. Sorry about this being so long, and I hope it's not an inappropriate use of the page. I'm just stuck on this moment, and my therapist isn't available for another week, and I know I will sit and stew in it until then if I don't figure something else out. I just don't know how to stop it. Also, I'm going to post this, but truthfully I feel incredibly stupid or needy or attention-seeking for doing so. But I'm also desperate for some form of relief from this horrible, guilty, shameful, self-hating feeling.
Ugh. Ouch. Mm-hmm. Just a lot of sympathy for that situation and that person being in it. I definitely understand DBT is an incredible amount to try and digest through any means, at least at first. And so struggling to put it in practice and then noticing times where you kind of wish you had something to put in practice is really hard to sit with. One of the things that I wanted to suggest, or I don't know, again, we only know these people through these little snapshots of their lives, so who knows?
That's right.
But what I heard under a lot of that and a lot of the guilt and the shame, the self-hating around all of the things that their partner said, that maybe they are lacking in their marriage or as a spouse, etc. The thing I felt compelled to tell this listener is that you can be a good person and still do bad things. You can do bad things and still be a good person. Either way, you can approach it from either angle. I got the impression that was difficult for this person in a way that, I don't know, felt like empathy, because I struggled with that for myself also for a long time. I had a hard time holding a both and, a dialectic of, yes, I can see honestly that I am lacking in these ways, maybe in any given relationship, and I can still be a good person, right? It doesn't mean that I'm a bad person or that I'm even a bad partner or friend or whatever relationship it might be. I can have lacks. I can have places where maybe I'm actively detrimental to the relationship and still be a basically good person. And that has helped me tremendously. I still struggle with this from time to time. I don't want to make it sound like I'm entirely on the other end of this journey, because that would be bullshit. But I am getting a lot better at it, and it certainly is making conversations like that feel a lot better. I don't mull on them for as long, and I'm better able to both take accountability when appropriate and disown accountability that isn't appropriate when I'm like, no, I don't think that one's it. So the both and, I think, is really missing in this person's story. So maybe I'm wrong, but that's something that I notice. I think I've probably mentioned this coping skill in the past, but the idea of using mala beads or something else with a mantra or some other statement in order to grow those neural connections. So for instance, this person could try something like, I can do bad things and still be a good person, right? And saying that to themselves over and over and over and over again will work, right? If you do it with enough repetition, it will go in there and start to change things in your brain, which I thought was really funny, Michelle, if I'm honest, because it made me think of the brainwashing comment. Because I've literally described using mala beads as brainwashing yourself into a new belief.
A little bit.
So yes, but is that as bad as we think? Right? If we've deliberately chosen to have a belief that we endorse on a conscious level, but struggle to fully integrate, I think that's when brainwashing ourselves is fantastic. It's appropriate, right? Someone else wow, speak English, Kate, brainwashed you into those beliefs in the first place, right? You're not born hating yourself, right? So anything that you have in there has already been brainwashed. So why not use the power for good and not evil, and instead help bring your internalized sense in alignment with your rational beliefs? That's really what I see that kind of mantra work as doing. So that's just a suggestion that I wanted to put out there for this listener, that they might find a mantra that might push back against some of the underlying belief system that they have here, that I imagine doesn't have their full conscious buy-in, but is really dug in like a tick in their emotional space. Specifically just for getting out of the rumination sort of spiral around the 4-hour conversation. First thing that I came up with is the 4-letter L words that I like to use for the thoughts portion of the accepts skill. That's just sitting around thinking of as many 4-letter words that start with the letter L as possible. There's almost 300. You're not going to get them all. It'll take some time. And likely occupy your thoughts enough that you're not going to be ruminating on that conversation any longer. That being said, if you don't like that way of practicing the thoughts skill, or you don't like that aspect of accepts the most, go with the skill that you feel best immerses you in distraction to get you out of the ruminating. So whether that's activities or thoughts or sensations or emotions or anything else, just leaning into doing that to help get your mind off of that. Because to use another thing that we talk about a lot, my guess is that this listener is seriously spamming their own buttons. Again, a thing I'm very familiar with doing to myself. But as we've talked about in the past, emotions last for very little time, only 90 seconds, if they're not re-stimulated. So if you're still sitting around in guilt and shame and self-hatred that many days after an event, you're probably sitting in there hitting, I'm doing gestures because people can see me now. You're probably sitting there spamming the feel bad button in yourself, right? So can you distract your mind enough to like let that, all those button pushes clear out of your system neurochemically and start to help you find a new emotional space?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I want to start with reading something that they said in here and really highlight it, because they had this part where they said, but last night I had a moment where I knew what I was doing was irrational, and I could see that me continuing was causing my spouse to shut down, but I couldn't stop myself. Now, I understand that when this listener wrote that, they were probably writing it to be like, look at what a failure I am, because I didn't stop myself. And I read this and I went, listener, you're starting to do it. You are exactly where you are meant to be as somebody who is new to this DBT world and trying to figure it out. This is how it starts. It starts with knowing what, like you saw it, right? I knew what I was doing was irrational. Well, maybe there was a point in time in your life where you wouldn't have known that that was irrational. But you saw it. That's a win, right? So it's not about like, I learned DBT and then I mean, anyone who's done DBT for a while knows this. You don't just learn these skills and go out and do them. You learn these skills and at first you do not use them. You don't. You forget. You don't feel confident enough to use them. It doesn't happen. And then after the fact, you're like, oh, yeah, I see what was happening there now. I should have used DBT. That's great. That's like an important part of like DBT development, to see where you're struggling clearly, even if you don't use any skills for it yet. I wouldn't expect you to be using skills yet. Not at all. It's okay that you're not there. Kate, I think we're actually on a pretty similar path here, because you mentioned how you can see how the dialectic of like, you can be a good person and still do bad things would be helpful for this listener.
Oh God, did I steal half your shit?
No. Like we're in agreement here. Because I was also really aware of reading this listener's post of, and again, no, listener, don't be hard on yourself here, right? This was a super authentic, honest post. And I know that a lot of people feel the same way that you do and will relate to what you wrote. Because sometimes in our own heads, we take what we think and we put it out into the world. It becomes apparent that like, we're not very kind to ourselves. Like we can have a lot of negative self-talk stored up inside. And you in your post, like really peeled back the curtain to show like how you think about yourself and how you view yourself. And it's okay if there are times where you really don't like yourself. That's okay. And also, like this really points to where dialectical thinking can be helpful. Kind of getting at the heart of what Kate was saying. Like I was just thinking of like kind of like little dialectics here, right? Like made up ones, right? I was 5 minutes late to the meeting and I also tried really hard to get out the door on time. In your case, listener, I feel ashamed about how I acted with my partner And I did the right thing by apologizing for my actions. Like the listener a couple questions ago, I snapped at my kids again, and I am really recognizing that that's something I want to work on. Okay? Like anytime that you start speaking negatively about yourself, practice an and statement to go with it, right? I was super lazy today, and that may be because my body needed rest. So I don't care what and statement you put behind the negative thing that you just said about yourself, but practice that. Practice that over and over and over again to catch your negative self-talk and start shifting it. The other thing that might be helpful, again, if we're really going to the base of the DBT pyramid, because you're new to all this stuff and we know it's a lot to digest. Mindfulness of your internal state may be really helpful for you. So if you can find moments throughout your day to just quickly pause. Doesn't mean you even have to pause your physical body. You can still be moving and doing all the things you're doing. But mentally pause and check in with yourself. Maybe take a deep breath if you can. Just once. Doesn't have to be a lot of deep breaths. Just one or two. And go, how am I in this moment? And to maybe even just tell yourself as you're doing that little brief mindfulness check-in of like, in this moment, I am okay. Because things around you may suck. Like life may be really hard in that moment. I know you came to DBT for some kind of a reason, right? So things may be really hard externally, and you may be really struggling with some things. And also, you're still standing. You're still going. You're still learning. Again, like reminding yourself of that may really help kind of to like your second point of like you don't want to snap over like the really small things. Really like cultivating that relationship with yourself, because we snap when we have a lot pent up that we're not processing or looking at. But if we can pause and look at it every so often and be kind to ourselves with it, we're less likely to snap. So that may be a helpful practice.
I like it. All right. The next one reads, I've been listening to your podcast episodes and find them great. Just wish someone had pointed them out to me years ago. I have been with my husband for the past 19 years in total, but he feels that he needs a trial separation. He has come back to me saying that he's done and wants a divorce. Obviously, I am finding this hard. I have controlled myself well and have not sent any horrible text messages, left terrible voice messages, or just generally lost my temper at him. I am needing your help with what particular podcast episodes I need to listen to in order to help me deal with this better. I am giving him time and space, but I struggle. We have 3 children, a boy that's 17, a boy that's 16, and a girl that's 13. I have noticed the improvements in myself, but I'm struggling with this all. Please help. I appreciate all you are doing for us all.
All right, listener, you asked for episode recommendations and we have got them. So we're going to give you a lot to pick from. As we say sometimes, do not pressure yourself to listen to all of these. Pick and choose what feels most helpful to you based off of the topics that we're going to name. But the thing I do want to say, right, I think we both kind of say this actually in our notes, Kate, like, this is why we're really just going to keep our responses short and sweet to episode recommendations like you asked for, because listener, you're doing it. You are acting skillfully and you have a lot to feel proud of. Like you said, obviously you are finding this hard. However, you are using opposite action. Yes, you are. Like you're doing it. So feel really proud of yourself about that you have not acted on those impulses when you've had them. So to dive into some episodes, I thought of 3. 2 from our DBT podcast here, 1 from our other podcast, The Couch and the Chair. So I thought about how we have an episode titled Radical Acceptance When Relationships End. That is from March 26, 2025. So pretty recently. So this is all about you. You did not ask for this divorce. He did. You, I assume, were not ready for your marriage to end. And you're the one on the receiving end of the relationship ending. So that's what we talk about in that episode for how to use radical acceptance there. Going way back a few years ago, from December 27th, 2023, the episode about creating a life worth living. Now that you are going to be, going through a divorce, your whole life is about to look different. So that may be helpful, especially once the divorce is finalized and you're really restarting things, to get curious about what a life worth living is looking like for you now. And then from The Couch and the Chair, this is also way back, May 20th, 2022. We have an episode there about ending relationships amicably. So, of course, you cannot control what he says or does in this process of divorce, but you can control yourself, as you are already recognizing and naming in what you wrote to us. But there may be some nuggets in that episode of things that you may find helpful with, wanting to have this be as amicable as possible. So you can give that a listen and see if there are things to take away from that may help.
I like it. And yeah, you're right, Michelle. I started off with just saying, well done, you. Because I thought it sounded like this person was already doing a great job in many respects. I also think it's funny. I wasn't looking closely enough at your notes to begin with. So originally we both had creating a life worth living. So that's the one place
we did
overlapped. And I was like, oh shit, nope, that's already being mentioned. So apparently doubling down on that one. But the ones that I wanted to call out, the first one is DBT and Finding Joy. That's from July 31st. Wow, I typed that badly. 2024. That one is... Yeah, I think that one's serving in this list similar purpose to what you were listing, Michelle, with talking about creating a life worth living, right? Like, how can you lean into still finding joy in your world, even through this hardship? How can you hold on to joy and, bring it more front and center in your world? I thought doing both Wise Mind and revisiting my Wise Mind might be a good idea. You want to talk about going way back, Michelle? The Wise Mind episode is from February 19th, 2020.
Like our very second episode of all time.
Yep. Way back machine. Whereas Revisiting Wise Mind is from May 28th, 2025. So pretty fucking recent. So big span there. And I don't know, maybe not, because this person doesn't really talk about struggling with their teens or anything else, but I thought I'd put it out there because maybe there's some stuff in it that they'd benefit from, is the DBT and Teens with Katie May episode. And that's from January 25th, 2023. So maybe not, but I thought there might be some useful stuff in there. Since that's a lot of teenagerness in one house to be coping with through difficult changes. So.
Yeah, totally. They're all going to be coping with the divorce the same way this listener is. So DBT could be good for everybody.
Exactly.
Okay, cool. This next one's pretty short. It says, hi all. I'm wondering if anyone has any resources or suggestions on skills for workplace trauma. I'm unfortunately stuck in this job until I can find a new one, which means that I still have to go into the place where the trauma happened and work an 8 to 9 hour shift. Thoughts?
I think it sucks, and I'm sorry. There you go. That's an initial thought. But more helpfully, just a lot of empathy. That sounds really shitty. Hard workplaces are really difficult. So the first thing that occurred to me actually is mindful self-compassion breaks. You can find them at the Center for Mindful Self-Compassion online, or on YouTube, or God, who knows, all sorts of places. But mindful self-compassion breaks might be a nice way to reground yourself to some self-compassionate kindness throughout that 8 to 9 hour shift. I did think possibly checking the facts for validation for yourself. So not necessarily really leaning in hard to the emotions, but at least reassuring yourself that it makes sense that you're struggling instead of being judgmental of yourself for the fact that it's difficult. That being said, since you do have to show up, even I'm going to go with though, because I'm assuming, even though your emotions do fit the facts, it's possible, or it sounds like acting on them. Oh God, how do they actually phrase it on the worksheet? Something like wouldn't be effective or something like that. Basically, if you do what you want to do due to the trauma, you're not going to be able to keep this job. So it sounds like some amount of opposite action might be needed. You're probably actually already practicing an amount of opposite action, a little unconsciously. So it might help to think about it and do it more deliberately. That might be a little bit more helpful. Even though it's very difficult, right? I do want to warn against, and I know we do in our episode about it, but not using opposite action to invalidate yourself. It's not about the idea of the emotion being bad or wrong or invalid. It's just not useful in this context, in this moment, right? Acting on it is not going to get you something that you want or need. And then I remembered, again, with the Wayback Machine, that we have an episode, Michelle, that is using DBT skills in the workplace. And that came out October 26th, 2022. So I thought there might be useful tidbits in there.
No, I'm super glad you found that. That's great. I'm sure we talked about a lot of things that will hopefully be helpful for this listener in that episode.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah. And, again, just acknowledging, Kate just threw a number of skills at you.
That's true.
I'm about to throw a number of skills at you. So don't feel like you need to do it all. But I feel like the more skills to pick from, the better. So honestly, what I'm about to suggest is what I recommend to clients of mine any time they're going to be going to a place or a situation where they have experienced trauma before, of how do you manage that? And DBT skills can actually really help with that. I mean, like we've talked about before, DBT is not the greatest for processing the deeper stuff that we sometimes struggle with. Like DBT doesn't really treat like childhood trauma, that kind of a thing. But what DBT is really good for is managing how things can manifest for us physically, and with our thoughts when we are in very stressful situations. So the way that I break this down is thinking of it as a before, a during, and an after plan. You need all three pieces here. And for you'll get lots of chances to practice this because I imagine you're working a few days a week at least. So this would be doing these things before your shift, during your shift, and after your shift. Okay. So the best thing to do before is please. All of those components of that acronym with treating yourself for physical illness or pain, making sure that your body is nourished nutritionally with eating, avoiding mood-altering substances, getting as much sleep as you can, and moving your body with exercise in a way that feels good to you. Now, I'm not saying that before you go to work, you need to
check box,
do all those things. Yeah. But what I'm saying is that on your off time, really focus on please. As much as you can, focus on please. We say it all the time. Nobody does this perfectly, but see what area you need the most work on and really put some effort in there. That's going to help you before you ever are at work. Then when you are at work, the during stuff that you can do, you are definitely going to be needing to be practicing some mindfulness. Just being in touch with your body and what it's feeling. If there are things you can do that are, self-soothing with your five senses, do those things if you can. I don't know, when I was the cashier at the grocery store back in the day, I was allowed to keep a little thing of lotion at my check stand, for example. So that could be something that might be nice to put on your hands. So these are going to be little things, but we want things that are available to you that help soothe your body when your nervous system is getting activated, because it will, because you had trauma here. So that's why you need to be mindful of when you're getting activated and then do something about it. So anything along the lines of self-soothing could be helpful. Or if you get really activated, like panic attack activated, you all probably know what I'm about to say. That's when you want to use TIP. Is, really seeing if there's changes you can do with your breathing, if nothing else. Seeing if you can take a quick break to go to the restroom and splash some cold water on your face. Like doing some TIP stuff may really help. And then after you are done with work, the after part is really important and often gets overlooked. But using some stuff from Accepts may be really helpful. Go home and distract yourself in a healthy way. In a way that's actually going to distract you. Let's be honest, plopping down on the couch and watching TV may not be distracting enough to get your mind off of how you are feeling on your shift. So choosing anything from the Accepts menu there will hopefully really help to shift your brain from I was just at work and that feels hard and traumatic to now I am home and I'm safe. Accepts can help you bridge that gap. So those are the things I would recommend.
Awesome. All right. This one reads, I have a question about tips on how to use skills in daily life. I feel like there are so many different skills to use, and I'm trying to get better about using them in a crisis, but also just in general. Is it okay to practice them when you're not in crisis, like distress tolerance? Is it even quote-unquote normal to use them daily when nothing is going on? Sometimes I feel like I don't even deserve to use skills when I actually need them the most. I am currently in an adherent DBT program with group and individual weekly, and this seems to be something I struggle with the most.
So fun fact, Kate, when I read this one, I was like, why does this sound so familiar? I was like, have we read this one before? Did we use it in another episode? Which maybe we did. But I think what it really is that with this particular listener writing it in this particular way, I don't think we ever actually did their exact thing somewhere else. But I think what that points to is like, listener, you are not alone, because you're not the first person to write in and ask us something along these lines. Sometimes I get in my head with Q&As of like, well, we've probably answered this before. Do we need to include this one? But like, I think it's important to, really validate like this person's questions. Is it okay to practice skills when you're not in crisis? Yes. And I hope that every single DBT provider out there would 100% say yes. I would hope. But I don't know if that's actually being talked about in all DBT programs. Truly, I think they're like, here are these skills for when you are in crisis. I do think that's how it is presented. So yeah, no wonder this listener is like, I don't know if this is normal to use them daily when nothing is going on. So not only do I think it is normal to use them daily when nothing is going on, I think it is essential.
Agree.
Because I really think that DBT has kind of different skills for different reasons. For example, TIP, you don't need to be doing TIP on a daily basis. No, that would not be it. But I do recommend trying TIP out just for kicks and giggles to see what you think about it when you're not in a crisis. Like saying, well, how does this feel? So that you kind of know what to expect when you're in a crisis to use it. But there are a lot of skills that are great for daily use. And in general, I think practicing skills when you're not in crisis, that's like the practice or the rehearsal for when you'll really need them. People don't go on stage having never practiced their lines, kind of a thing. So you need to practice. That's really important. But as far as some daily skills that I would recommend using when you're not in crisis, mindfulness. mindfulness is the daily practice of DBT. And also, I really like please. I was mentioning that to the last listener. Please is another really great one of like, this is going to be foundational to help you do everything else. And we can always use work on our please skills. So those would be some really good places to begin. It stood out to me, though, listener. I thought your phrasing was interesting here when you said, sometimes I feel like I don't even deserve to use skills when I actually need them the most. What a vulnerable, honest thing to share. So thank you for sharing that, because I would strongly suspect you are not alone in feeling that way. And somebody listening to us say that right now, of sometimes I feel like I don't even deserve to use skills when I actually need them, is nodding along and saying me too as we're reading this. So something to get curious about with that is, who taught you what you do and don't deserve? Where did you learn that? From who? And how much is that voice of that other person or people still following you around in other areas of your life? Because what you are deserving of is feeling like when the waters of life get really choppy, because they do, and stressors are thrown at us all the time, you deserve to learn how to swim and keep your head above water. I don't want you to drown. And that's what DBT really does, is it gives us things that we can do so that when life sucks hard, we don't drown and do things totally on accident that can make it worse. But you are absolutely deserving of that. So just something to maybe get curious about. If you have an individual therapist, great thing to bring to therapy. Oh, such a good thing to talk through there if you have someone you can talk about it with. But you say you're in an adherent DBT program. So
yeah,
you've got something going on individually, weekly, where maybe you could bring it to that DBT therapist that you're working with. But yeah, you're doing awesome. You're doing really great.
No, absolutely. I agree. Since it seems to be the Q&A of suggesting other episodes, I thought I'd jump on that train and suggest How to Keep DBT Feeling Fresh from February 26th of 2025. I just almost said of this year. I assume people will keep listening to this outside of this year. That's not a good way to reference it. So that's a quick suggestion. I too, Michelle, very much noticed the I don't deserve to use them when I actually need them the most. I took that one way to begin with, but the more I sit with it, the more I think I understand it to mean that during the times of that kind of distress, a barrier to reaching for skills in those moments is that type of distress comes with a sense of undeserving, of not deserving to use them. That is, or like maybe a even like symptom of the distress.
This stress.
Yeah, oh maybe. Yep.
Like, what if I did something that made things really bad
for myself? Like, I don't deserve to feel better and be skillful. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Could mean that too.
It's like guilt, right? So I think there's a lot to look at, and definitely, as you mentioned, I think it's probably really old wounding, following someone around with that sort of thing. But I definitely want to acknowledge that, because I have times when I am super overwhelmed with, like, in a super triggered state, that I would feel like I'm not deserving of feeling better or not deserving of using my skills because I'm such shit or something like that. So tip skills, by the way, for that one, I highly recommend tip for helping get out of that sort of really precipitous thinking and super triggered place. Maybe also some check the facts to help you out there for like more validation, either of like who and how you are and your how do I say it? Either validating your worthiness or using a check the facts with the I'm not worthy statement and seeing that doesn't really fit the facts, whichever way you prefer to go about it. Also, just some other skills to add to the possible daily skills list. And it's funny, Michelle, because you've done this 2 or 3 times already this episode, and here I am doing it again, saying, don't try starting to do all these daily skills all at once. Pick favorites, right? Like start with 1, maybe 2, but definitely don't try and add all of Michelle and my suggestions to your daily practice all at once. That would be overwhelming and very hard to integrate. But some ideas that I would have would be self-soothing and accumulating positive experiences in the short term. I would add mindfulness. Mindfulness is not incorrect as a starting place, but as potential secondary skills. I like self-soothing and accumulating positive experiences.
Yeah. Nice. I think we made it to the end, Kate. I think this is the last one.
All right.
Here we go. Okay. This one says, I'm from Washington State.
Hey,
well, hello. And was advised by my doctor to try DBT. I did 2 appointments with the doctor, but I was not in a place where I got anything to stick me into wanting to keep going. I had an appointment last week with a DBT therapist, but I have no way to afford therapy. So my question is, I purchased the DBT skills, handouts, and worksheets book. I know that the podcast is not a therapy session, but do you feel it is something that I can do on my own until I can afford therapy? And by on my own, I mean using this podcast and the workbook?
Yes, and sort of. As Michelle and I have said, right, it doesn't replace a therapy session. Certainly not a group, which is how both of us prefer to have DBT taught, is in group settings, so you get the benefit of other people's experiences. That being said, the podcast does have some, group type things. My clinic, for instance, has an every other Thursday drop-in DBT discussion group that's free on Zoom for people anywhere, but especially in Washington State. At least you know you're on the right time zone for it. It actually is 6 to 7 p.m. on Thursdays for someone in Washington State with us. And also, blessings upon the DBT skills and worksheets book. It's great. It's necessary. I utilize it for all sorts of things. Oh my fucking Jesus, don't let it be the only book. Yeah. It doesn't teach the skills for shit. Not for shit. In my opinion. Blessings upon the book. Please don't be listening, anybody from Marshall Linehan's team. But I would highly suggest finding a book that is more about teaching the skills than just the handouts and the worksheets that go along with them. Something with a lot more meat to it. I would feel remiss if I didn't take the opportunity to be a little bit self-promotional and say the book that we wrote would definitely count as one to do more like teaching the skills to go along with the worksheets and handouts, right? Those are great things to look through, and I highly recommend using them, but I think trying to utilize them by themselves, even with the podcast, might be kind of rough. So I would suggest finding another book. Like I said, ours would count, but there are many, many others. Maybe you want to find one that's particular to your diagnosis or to your issue. There's a lot of different DBT books out there. Other things that might help you if you're trying to be a little bit more autodidactic about your DBT skills is apps. We do have a review of DBT apps episode from December 28th of 2022, where we talk about a bunch of those. But yes, mostly. Does it replace things? No. Is it helpful? I believe so.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would agree. I think it's definitely possible, and there are a lot of people out there that are self-taught DBTers.
Yep.
We could say. They have never joined a group. They have never worked with a therapist who is like a DBT therapist. Like, they learned these skills themselves through other resources, like podcasts, like books, they have found ways to learn DBT without ever doing it formally. And yes, there are many providers, I would say, in the DBT community that really advise against doing self-taught DBT. And there are some people who really believe that even a DBT group is not sufficient. You need gold standard adherent DBT where you are doing a group every week and individual therapy every week, and that is the way to learn DBT. Full transparency, Kate and I don't agree. Otherwise, we wouldn't be doing this podcast.
Yeah, I do not like the rigidity of that.
the rigidity of that, the cost of that, the time commitment of that leaves a whole lot of people out in the cold where they would not learn DBT otherwise if that was the only way to learn it. So we started the podcast because we wanted to put something out there that wasn't a book to help people learn about DBT and what it is. So yeah, you can learn a lot about DBT by yourself. Kate already said it and I would echo it. Unfortunately, I think you didn't get the best book. If you are starting from scratch, that big spiral bound book
is a bitch.
Not the one for you. No. And I know so many people get that one.
I know.
Because it just shows up first on Amazon. Yeah. I'm like, no, not that one.
And even the Skinny Green book, I think, under-teaches a little bit, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, I used to recommend that one all the time, but now I know there are better books out there.
It's not horrible. I don't mean to diss on it. The Green book's better than the Spiral Bound for people trying to learn, but.
Yeah, but I've gotten a lot of people who have done the Green book too, and they're like, I have a lot of questions after reading it. So here are some things that may help. I love that Kate recommended apps. Here's the good news is that there are lots of resources out there now where it's not going to be the cost or the time of a formal DBT group, but it's going to give you DBT and create a sense of community for you. So we had a guest speaker on from TheraHive a number of months ago. I didn't look up that episode number. TheraHive could be a good resource where, again, you are in a little group and you have access to a DBT coach, but it's not as expensive. Another really great option, I mentioned it on last month's monthly episode because I did an interview with her, but I'll mention it again here, is joining Diana Partington's community. Yeah, I won't repeat all that I said in the last monthly episode. I will just say for $50 a month, you will get your worth in gold as far as learning DBT from somebody who is super proficient in it, and you can learn it in a variety of ways. So yes, podcasts are great. Books are great. You can also attend workshops and read blogs and get daily emails. And if you are I'm hooked on this DBT thing and I really want to learn it, join Diana's community. So we'll put the link in the show notes, but it's dbtforlife.com, and then it's going to be hard to say, /DBT-for-life-community. But just go to the link in the show notes. That'll be easier. But yeah, it's only $50 a month. That's it. And you could spend hours and hours and hours every month learning DBT. Cool. It's so worth it. It's so worth it. So that could be another good option for you.
Love it. Excited to do another one of these. I hope people like it.
I know. I kind of feel a little bit and I knew it might feel this way for us, I mean, don't get me wrong. I do not run. Let me just say that. But I feel it would be something if you normally run a mile then all of a sudden you're running 5 miles, and that is not what you normally run. I was kind of aware of that halfway through. I'm whoa, we don't normally do this many. But we made it through. We
8 feels a lot more than twice as many as 4. It does. It's true.
Yes. It feels we did 15.
Yeah.
But we only did 8.
But it was fun. I still enjoyed it. So I'm looking forward to doing
I liked it
another one. And otherwise we'll talk to folks next month. If you want to contribute to more mega Q&As in the future, you can either continue to post in the Facebook group, or you can email us at dbtandmepodcast@gmail.com, and it'll make its way onto here eventually.
Yes, it will eventually.
But we'll write back sooner.
Thanks, everybody.
So there you go. All right, bye, everyone.
To learn more about us and the DBT skills we're teaching each week, join our Facebook group. Simply log in to your Facebook profile and search for DBT and Me Podcast.